Guns and tragedy. What is it with our love affair with guns here in America, and what can we do to try to prevent such mass shootings happening in our country? Stay tuned and listen right here on the Scott Stedman podcast. Morning, everybody. It is October 6th. It is about 10 o'clock in the morning. It is a beautiful sunny day here in Stanton, Virginia. Um, Better than the last couple of weeks. It's just been rainy and rainy and rainy and rainy. Not as much rain in South Carolina, which for those of you who are in the South Carolina area who are listening to this podcast, I hope you're doing well. Hope everyone in your family is safe. And I at least know some of my friends are actually sending supplies and stuff down to you guys to kind of help support you guys during all the flooding that you have been receiving. So last week was kind of a very horrific week. We had a mass shooting at a college in Oregon. We also, right here in our own community here in Stanton, Virginia, we ended up having a tragedy of our own. We had a young woman of 19 years old, a single mother with a 2-year-old son who basically was shot by her ex-boyfriend, I believe, and he basically shot her while she was in her car, and then he went into the house where her parents were and the child was and shot himself downstairs. And luckily they were upstairs, but they heard the gunshot. So it really was a very sad day. Even the movie theater that she worked at is actually closed today due because they're going to be going, everyone on staff is going to be going to the service. And with all this stuff about guns, it's a tragedy that we seen this stuff happen, and it's just been very hard for me. Not hard because of my viewpoint on firearms, because of the tragedies, but what's been really hard is literally a day, not even a day after the tragedy, already on my Facebook feed, I've been seeing all these different gun posts. People saying that it's not a gun problem, it's a heart problem. People calling for stricter control on guns, that we need more gun control in this country. Other people saying, no, we don't need more gun control. We need better health care to help with mental illness. And there's just been a lot of criticism. Even when you look at the candidates, you see a lot of people who are political candidates who are running for the Democratic Party who basically are calling for stricter gun controls. And then you see people over on the Republican side who are saying, well, even if we had stricter controls, that's not going to stop anything. If people want to come and get a gun and shoot people, then that's what they're going to do. My thing is this: before I start really talking about the gun problem that we have here in America, I really want to say that for those who have posted things about guns, any type of gun thing, any gun memes, anything, basically like right after the shooting. And actually I wouldn't say it was right after the shooting. It seemed like it had been right after the presidential, when Barack Obama was making a statement about guns. And even told us to look at like statistics, which basically say like, death from terrorists and gun homicides over the last 10 years. And right after that came out, right after that came out, then that's when I think a lot of these people's opinions, people posting pictures about guns and their beliefs about guns happened. And I just have to say that it's shame on you. Shame on you. People have just lost loved ones about a day ago from being shot by people who were crazy, who had 4, 5, 6 guns, and yet, instead of posting pictures, oh, our prayers are with you, we're so sorry about your loss, we should pray for our country, we should pray for healing for our country, whatever the case may be, we automatically forgot that, oh yeah, people just died from a gun shooting. There are people who are still grieving and mourning. And I'm sure when they're turning on their Facebook page and looking after they've lost a husband, a mother, a son, or a daughter, and here they're seeing all their friends saying, oh, it's a heart problem, not a gun problem. Oh, Cain killed Abel with a rock, not with a gun. Whatever the case may be, really, it's a pretty crappy. It is pretty crappy to start getting into a political gunfight on Facebook just days after. I mean, if it was a week after and you guys want to go, and here's the thing, you posting something on Facebook is not going to change the issue. It's not like President Obama's has a Facebook page and everyone's his friend, and he's going to look and go, oh, wow, I guess a lot of people sure don't want bans on their guns. I guess we won't ban guns. Oh, I guess I was wrong. No, you posting a little picture on Facebook's not going to change anything. So really what you did is kind of very disrespectful to those who have lost someone. That's my opinion. I think it's the right opinion. But again, that's my 2 cents. But again, I'm not going to linger on that tangent right now. It's very easy because when we look at the issue of guns, I understand people's side of the party on both sides. We see all these deaths that are happening. Actually just looking at just a couple of pictures, we see in the daily news in the New York Daily News on October 2nd, they had this cover page. It says Sandy Hook, December 2012, 26 shot dead. And then, of course, Roseburg, October 2015, 9 shot dead. And then they have a number, 87,423, and nothing's changed. And just looking at a lot of these statistics, obviously American deaths in 2013, breast cancer had 41,325 deaths, so that's very, very high. People who were killed by guns were 3,636. Car crashes, 32,719. And then American deaths in Afghanistan, 127. And terrorism in the United States, 7 in 2013. And then you look at deaths from terrorism and deaths from guns and homicide. And actually, I find this a little strange because if there's American deaths and terrorism at 7, this chart says that in 2000, it doesn't go to 2013. Maybe that's why. Okay. But even looking at these statistics, you can see on this thing that you look at, in 2001, obviously terrorism deaths are up to past the 2,000 mark. Probably about close to 3,000 people died in terrorist attacks in 2001. But then if you look at homicides from guns, it's just right below 12,000. And then if you kind of look from 2002, 2003, 2004, and I'm assuming all of this is happening right here in America, very low, maybe a couple, 1, 2, some are even on the 0, but it's really not even up to where it was in 2001. But as you see from the gun things, in 2002, almost to 12,000. 12,000 in 2003, a little bit below 12,000 in 2014. over 12,000 deaths. And so really you kind of see like this average line of about 12,000 deaths from gunshots and terrorism. And actually, here's a more defined thing. Here's more of a defining thing that's more just, yeah, it's high. I mean, if you look at the lines, it's basically not even close. And here's the thing, and I know some people are probably going to say, well, who are putting out these stats? It might be liberal media, so they're going to, tweak the numbers. And I get that. And I understand that, and I get that. I understand those thoughts. But still, I don't think anybody can blow out stats that are almost 10,000 off. I don't think that can happen unless it's completely wrong. And if someone finds out that there was some lying, there was some cheating on these stats, then we're going to really see that there's going to be an issue. But at the same time, I think even if they find it's wrong, I don't think that number is going to drop all the way down to zero either. I don't think that number is going to be less than the amount of violence that on American soil due to terrorism either. So really we see kind of this issue. Now, I get it. And again, I'm going to say I get this because I understand those who are pro gun. I get it. You want to make sure that you have your guns, either for protection or for hunting purposes. I know a lot of guys who are pro gun, and they're hunters too. They like to go out. They like to hunt. They hunt every year. They get a deer. I know one guy in Ohio. He actually travels, and he, if it's gun season, he will use his gun to shoot animals. But if it's bow season, he will use his bow. Like, he is very strict to the rules of what he can do and how many deer he can shoot, and all of that stuff. So here's kind of the interesting thing about the pro guns. I understand that, and usually your thing is you always say, well, our second, you're going against our Second Amendment rights, because we have the right to bear arms. And I get that. But here's what the Second Amendment, and here's the other thing too. Anytime when someone pulls stuff out of the Constitution, it's almost like when people pull stuff out of the Bible. We pull certain verses or certain phrases in verses to prove our point, but we don't look at the whole context of everything. And I think that's kind of a really bad thing as a minister. That makes me angry because I don't like people who use Scripture to attack people, because Scripture's not to be used to attack people. It's used to help correct, and it's really helped to promote hope, grace, forgiveness, and love to people. It's hope to make people grow closer to God, not push people farther away from God because you're using the Bible as a weapon, because you're using Scripture out of context. And people are doing that with our Constitution. Here is what the Second Amendment says, the whole thing and how it is written. It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Okay. So yeah, the rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All right, I get that, but we forget that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. How many of you people who are pro-guns are part of a militia? Like, seriously, how many of you are part of a militia? Like, you actually have a bunch of buddies, you get together, you all have your guns, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, our state of Virginia is being threatened. All right, militia, let's go get our guns and protect our state. How many of you guys are doing that? How many of you guys are protecting the security of your free state with your guns? I think the answer is you don't. Just throwing that out there. there's also other people who are pro guns who are like, oh, if we have harsher if we have stricter things on our guns, then people, the government's going to take away our guns. I really don't think they're going to come and take away your guns. I really find that hard to believe, because I don't know any time the government's going to come and take away your property unless it's some type of tax issue, where they start to take everything that you have, or they start taking stuff because you're involved in some type of terror plot, which I guess they may be able to use that to just take your guns away, but just don't align yourself with any terrorist organizations. I think you'll be fine. So yeah, I don't think they're going to come take your guns away. Basically, what they're going to do is they're going to really try to put restrictions on, and especially if you cause a crime, if you cause any type of crime and you own guns, then you're going to lose your guns. I think that's okay, because especially in the tragedy that happened here in our community in Stanton, the guy who shot the young woman, Jasmine, he was actually in trouble with the police. Actually was, there's a lot of news stories coming out, and I'm not sure the actual facts of it, but I do know that he had some issues with the law. And obviously, if someone is having problems with the law and is found aggressive, they should probably have their guns taken away. But nope, his gun was not taken away. I believe from certain news reports that he actually went and got another gun, even though he wasn't supposed to, because he was already in trouble with the law. And he went and he took the life of somebody. And I was actually looking at a chart by state, like, by who has stricter gun control and who doesn't, and they kind of list them down, and they also kind of have like their average deaths. I believe Rhode Island, I think it's Rhode Island or Vermont, has like the strongest, I think it's Rhode Island, has like the strongest gun control. You have to have a permit before you can even buy a gun. You have to go take a test. And I think even when you buy a gun, there's a waiting period, which I think that's standard. I mean, some of them it's like 10 days, 14 days. Others, I think one was like 2 months. You had to wait before you got your gun. Which I know people like, no, if I buy something, I should have it right now. Well, if you're probably thinking that way, you probably shouldn't have one right now, because you're probably a big crazy person. Just saying. But I mean, especially if you want to go hunting, and in your state there's a 2-month waiting period, you may want to go and buy your gun and get that 2 months before hunting season, or maybe even 3 or 4 months before hunting season, so you can have it, clean it, get it ready, so then you can go. And, play by the rules. If you have rules in your state, play by them. Don't try to fight against them. So really, I see this, and there's a part of me that says, and it's very hard for me to kind of be on the side of a pro-gun viewpoint, because, I mean, once the Sandy Hook tragedy happened and little children were being massacred, I think there might have been a thing inside of us that says, you know what? Maybe we should really think about, or even come to a compromise in a way, on how we can have better gun control. And I've even seen people say, oh yeah, when Russia had gun control, Stalin was their leader, and he just started to wipe people off. In Germany, they had gun control, and Hitler was in power, and they started to wipe people off. Okay. All right. I'm going to say it. I understand that. But at the same time, look who was in power. Look who was saying, hey, we should get rid of these guns, because these were people who wanted control, wanted power over the people. And I know we can think about that, our government, that we want power and everything over the people. Well, guess what? We have the power to vote those people out of office. So maybe you should actually go to the polls and vote, instead of complaining about it, and yet you do nothing to even vote or do anything. Oh, well, I vote for the president. Well, I'm glad you vote for the president, but you also need to vote for your senators and your statesmen and your governors and your mayor, because all these people who are in politics are in the process of making these decisions for your state, for your city that you live in. So maybe you should actually go to the poll more often than, I'm just going to vote for the president. I mean, maybe that's the biggest problem. Maybe that's the biggest problem with this whole gun thing. People don't vote, so then when something doesn't happen the way they want it to happen, they get mad and they go to Facebook about it. Like Facebook is going to solve everyone's problems. Your senators are going to look at Facebook and go, "Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm going to fix this." But here's the thing. My wife went over to the UK for a legal trip. And she got to sit on some court cases and everything. And one of the things about the UK is they have very strong gun control over there. And one of the things about the UK is I think only like very few, like I don't think anyone can have guns except for like police, people who are your public servants. I think they can have guns. And then, but one of the things is that their gun violence is actually down. There is they have like really no type of gun deaths or homicides or anything by gun. But what they do have is they do have a number of stabbings. People are getting stabbed with knives. But even the number of people who've been stabbed in the UK is a far lot less than over here in America. And plus, with a knife wound, yeah, can you die from a knife wound? Yes. But you probably have a higher probability of surviving a knife wound than you have from someone shooting you. Don't know what the statistics are. That's just my opinion. But I really think that, and plus, I mean, if someone's going to stab you, they have to get close. I mean, if that guy if the guy over in Oregon just had a knife and wanted to kill people, how soon would it be before there'd be a couple people who would be able to wrestle that guy down and knock the knife out of his hand? It would be pretty quickly. But when you have a guy that has a rifle and 3 handguns on him and he's going around shooting up the place, yeah, that's a little bit more extreme, and I think that's a little bit harder to stop. And even the one guy who survived, who actually charged at him to kind of stop him from shooting more people, he was unsuccessful too. He got shot 7 times, wasn't able to stop him, and it's very interesting too because when we look at people who are shooting, we always kind of associate it with mental illness. We kind of use mental illness as a scapegoat. Oh, they're crazy. They needed to go. They're mentally ill. Well, and I understand that, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who have killed people who were mentally ill with guns. But the thing is. But it's interesting because even research, and actually this is research that came out of Vanderbilt University, basically from what their findings are, a lot of people who you basically look at the research, it's really not the crazy person that you have to fear with the handgun. They've actually done they wrote an article called "Mental Illness, Mass Shootings, and the Politics of American Firearms," and as they analyzed their data, they basically found that the society's preconceived notions that most mentally ill people are actually not that violent, and they say that fewer than 5% of the 120,000 gun-related killings in the United States between 2001 and 2010 were perpetrated by people diagnosed with a mental illness. Okay, 5%. 5% out of the 120. Actually, here, let me pull out my calculator. Let me go ahead and figure out what 5% of that is. I'm not very good at math. I have to use a calculator. But let's see. So 1,200,000 times 5%. Okay, so about 6,000 of those were done by mental illness. So I think that's very interesting. And really it's a misdirected brain because most of these people don't have a mental illness. Most of these people are just going to go out because, Either they're angry about something, and sure, is anger mental illness? Not really. Like it's part of the mind, but it's not a mental illness to be angry. Um, but really, you just see a lot of people throwing the blame on, oh, it must be our mental health system. That's why we have all these mass shootings. Well, it's not really that. It's a very few percent. The other thing is like, well, how do we know? Because most of these people who shoot and kill people are actually end up killing themselves. So we don't know if they were crazy or not. So we have to ask their parents. We have to ask people maybe if they had a counselor, like, oh, was this person crazy? Should they have had a gun? Like, oh, we tend to throw the blame around, but really, I think maybe the blame we have to point at ourselves on why this happened. We really need to point the finger at ourselves, and we really need to get to the heart of the matter. I think that a lot of times what we need to do is we really need to be engaged with people. We really need to live in a community that loves and support each other. I don't know. I mean, if you think about going all the way back to the Columbine shooting, which was the big first school shooting that I experienced in my lifetime when I was in high school. A lot of those guys were picked on. They were kind of like the social outcast of their school, and no one really took time to love them and do anything. So what did they do? They said, well, we know what? We hate everybody. We're just going to go ahead and just start shooting up our school. And there's a part of me that thinks, if someone would have just reached out and said, hey, if people would stop picking on people, bullying on people, making fun of people, and actually try to create an environment of love for people, I really don't think we would have this much mass shooting. The other point I want to make is anytime when we see a mass shooting and we see somebody, the shooter, the perpetrator in a way, take their own life, we always say that, well, that's a coward's way to go. And I believe the reason why people say it's a coward's way to go is because there is no justice. There really is no justice. There really is no resolution in a way. It's different if someone was arrested, and I think it would be different even if the police shot the person to stop them and killed them. At least justice has been served in a way, because we have a officer shooting someone who is trying to harm other people. And we kind of say, justice has been served. Or if they get captured, they go to court and they're locked up in a penitentiary, justice has been served. If they are getting the death penalty and they end up getting gassed, getting injections, electric chair. I know there's a few states that still do the whole shooting thing as an execution. I think Oklahoma does that still. Justice has been served. But when someone takes their own life, the perpetrator takes their own life, we always go, well, where's the justice at? Where is the justice? And I think it's moments like these that we really hope that there's an afterlife. We really hope that when someone takes their own life, that there's an afterlife to the point where they can then be judged, and then they can be sent into the fiery inferno. They can be sent to hell and not get into heaven because of the horrible tragedy that they have done, because of the act of hate and violence that they have unleashed upon innocent people. When I see a mass shooting and someone takes herself, there's a part of me that goes, if people, there has to be a God. There has to be something. Because if not, then where's the judgment? Where's the justice that comes from a situation like this if there is no judgment in the afterlife? I think overall, just to kind of wrap this whole rambling musing of mine that I've been doing, overall, I think it might be good to for each state to really look at how they can make things a little bit stricter, how they can do anything. Because even with Rhode Island, even though they had the strictest, I think they had an average of like 8 gun-related deaths in a year, which is pretty small because when you get to the more people who have the more loose gun regulations, you're now up to about 23 deaths a year on average. So maybe we do need a stricter gun control. Maybe for those of us who are pro-gun, maybe we need to stop looking at our guns and hold on to them and say, "Oh, I love my guns. Please don't take my guns away." But maybe we should look at the overall picture. It's like, well, what can I do? What can I do? What good practices can I do with my guns that I have that I can show to my family to make sure that my kid or my grandkid is not going to be the person who's going to go out and cause the next mass shooting in my community. Maybe stricter gun controls is the answer. Maybe us adopting an atmosphere of love and going to church and praying and just praying for our nation and praying for the whole gun violence situation. Maybe that's the answer. But all I know is we can't keep having the same things happen. We can't have our same procedures as the way they are now and expect things to get better as far as the mass gun violence happens. There needs to be a change. And I don't know what the answer may be, but I think any type of change that's going to kind of limit who can have guns, who can't have guns, and who can buy guns, I think is going to be in a step in the right direction. All right, well, that's really all I have to say on this subject. Hope you're having a great day, and I will talk to you later. All right, talk to you later. Bye.